So you're based in London, is it?
Yeah, I'm in London. I've been here, it feels like about 5 minutes, but it's actually been almost 7 years.
Oh my God,
Which,
7 now.
yeah,
Yeah.
7, yeah. But I originally from Limerick, studied in LIT, and do you know what? I go home all the time as well. So
Yeah, so close, like, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
on a normal year, like
Well,
this
yeah.
year, I haven't been home so much, but normally I get home all the time. But yeah,
Yeah.
living in London, and it's so strange. It's so quiet at the minute, because yeah, everyone's just working from home.
Yeah.
And used to work from home anywhere? Or did you have an office over there?
Yeah, so I mainly worked in central London, like primarily just with meetings and things like that. And actually the brands I work with have office space as well. So I would go into those offices, which was really, really handy as well. So every day you'd be in Soho, and now it's just, yeah, a bit weird. But
Yeah.
do you know, I'd always kind of played with the idea of like, oh, could I work from home? Is it something I've got the concentration for? So this has been a really good test.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
Definitely.
it's good.
So Ciara, just for anyone listening who doesn't know about you, just a little about yourself, kind of, and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Ciara, and I own the Socially Ciara agency, which is a 360 social media digital marketing agency. I'm going to put that on. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
We had my dog came in the middle of last week's episode.
Yeah.
I had to put the cat out, and I was like, I'll come back to you in a half an hour. So yeah, we're a 360 social media agency based in London, but working with global clients. And my own background was I started in PR at a time. Actually, I worked for an agency in Dublin, and it was at a time where there was a really interesting transition where public relations was edging on the side of social media because it was all about communication. And then I ended up kind of moving more into social media, and then in turn kind of more into the digital marketing side as well, because when you start on just the communication side, it can be a bit fluffy, but then, learning all about, I suppose, the digital aspect of the business as well. So yeah, started the agency about 3 years ago, started off in a freelance side of the business, and actually ended up, I suppose, getting clients, getting some side work, and then it actually just built into a small team, but a growing team and a growing agency that we have today. So it's been a bit of a weird road, but it's been really interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing, because I started following you, I think, when you only had about 2,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And now you have about 12.3, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell our listeners how you grew that Instagram in a short period of time? To be fair, in 2 years is short.
Yeah, for sure. And at the very beginning, I'll be so honest with you, it was so slow. And it took me a long time to actually build up a community, but I knew that was the aspect I wanted to go down. And I spent, and this is honestly just being completely transparent, I would spend an hour to 2 hours every day on the app. And it wasn't even necessarily posting content or posting stories. We didn't even really have stories back then. It was just on the feed, but it was actually finding people who were aligned with my community, who I thought would be in the same space as me, and just making connections and getting to know people. And I would spend so much time doing that. And that was like a hard slog for 6 months. And we didn't grow massively, but I think then when we started doing other things, that kind of came back around for us. So I would say the biggest jump in following we had was probably actually March this year until now. And I think we grew about 4,000 or 5,000 followers, and that was
amazing.
And that was on the back of, we did these Zoom sessions, and it was every week we would just, it was to kind of give back and help people to learn about social media. And a lot of people found us through that. So that was kind of been the biggest thing. So it's about giving advice, giving expertise, but also positioning yourself as the expert as something. And I think when you've built a community, they're almost like cheerleaders for you. So many people were like, oh, join the Zoom session. And I think it was that kind of all came together to get the growth, I suppose, that we've got this year. But we've definitely got a long way to go.
Yeah. And when you're recommended to people, I think they go to your page and they're like, wow, because of the aesthetics of your page.
Yeah.
It's everyone's in love with your aesthetics. So well, I am anyway.
Pamela
do you
has
think-
been very excited about this
Yeah.
podcast.
Amazing. Yeah, when you emailed me, I was like 100%, I'm definitely coming on.
Yeah, because do you remember you did a puzzle on your Instagram feed? I think it was last year, was it? Or maybe earlier?
Yeah.
I'm testing that out now on my own page. I'm
I know.
like trying it.
I saw that. Yeah, I was like, God. And I say that to people. I'm like, if you remember Socially Ciara with the puzzle, you're an OG follower.
Yeah. I was obsessed with that puzzle. I was like, how did she do it?
I
So
know.
yeah. But do you think there's definitely a fine balance between aesthetics and content that's valuable? So do you think you have to kind of balance the both?
For sure. I mean, for me, aesthetic is really important. And I think a lot of it as well is it's aligned to who you're trying to attract. So for me, I don't exclusively work with beauty and fashion brands, but that's the space that I find I'm more creative and it's the space I like to work in. So for me and the clients that I'm attracting, aesthetic is actually really key. And when we work with clients, 9 times out of 10, the first conversation that we will have will be like, I just saw your Instagram and I had to work with you. And I'm like, okay, that actually proves that the hours of like thinking about the positioning and where we put, I'm like, it pays off. But for me, it's like, it's actually more than just a pretty Instagram. It's actually your shop window. It's your portfolio. It's showing what you will do for a client. And that's why for me, it's always so important. And even when we do content plans for clients, I'll be like, okay, maybe if we move this way and, moving around these. So I think it's super important. And the aesthetic that you have will attract people who have a similar taste to you as well. So I'm all about it.
That's a really good point, though, that you've kind of planned out your profile in such a way to attract the type of clients you want. Because obviously aesthetics important no matter what, but in the type of clients you're going after, it's obviously extremely important. So you're producing the content that's going to grab their attention, basically.
For sure. And it's not like, I think you pick one aesthetic and then you're stuck with it for life. You can move and evolve, and it's such a personal thing. Like when I first started Socially Ciara like 3 years ago, the Instagram was monochrome, like it was black and white, and that was the theme, but that was actually quite in trend at the time. And then we, like, Pamela said, we moved into this puzzle theme, and then we did like this digital advent calendar, and we've then gradually moved into this kind of warmer beige aesthetic that we've got today. So it evolves with you as well. So I think that's quite important to kind of keep that in mind as well, that you're not stuck with it for life. You can evolve it.
Yeah. Brilliant. And I suppose one thing as well, what a lot of people would say at the moment is they see the organic reach on Instagram probably going down a bit. In terms for small businesses, no matter what sector they're in, I suppose, really, what kind of advice would you have for them in terms of growing their Instagram following?
Yeah, the big question, isn't it? Yeah, I definitely see a drop in it at the moment. I see it in myself. Before we would post on the feed every day. I've scaled that back a little bit, but we're putting more effort into video content and putting together reels and putting together stories. So while that is kind of taken away from that, but it's about consistency. So Instagram and the algorithm and the way your reach will work is that they want you to be utilizing new features. So it's in their best interest to make reels a success, to make stories a success, and the same with IGTV when that came out. So they're putting all their effort and I suppose rewarding the people that are utilizing those new features. So if you go onto your Discover page, I guarantee you half of the videos that you will see will be reels. And that's just because they want to promote you. I test out these theories before I ever really go on and say, like, this is what we believe in, this is fact. I will always test it on my own feed beforehand. And I suppose Socially Ciara kind of came from that mission as well. It's like, I kind of learned, so you don't really have to, like, I do the hard work. So you can just take the advice. But yeah, I would say if you're looking to gather your reach and drive engagement, more so for the reach, I would say test out the new features and test them out in different ways. Like one type of reel might not work for you, try a different one. And I think the thing that people are scared of is testing things that might not fit their business in the traditional sense, but it's all about testing and learning. And I think for the moment I would focus on those new features, and in 6 months time when another feature is rolled out, try it out, try and be the first one, and just don't be scared of things, I would say, in that sense. I suppose on the second side of that, we're looking at, engagement being a really big metric. So we say that like the save on your post is like the new super like. And like, because I mean, I still have in the UK likes on my post, so I can see how many people like my post, but I'm pretty sure in every other market that's more or less like non-existent. Yeah, so I can still see. Yeah, which is really interesting. A friend of mine texted me the other day. She was like, do you ever remember how many likes that world-breaking egg got? And I was like, I can actually check for you because I can see. It was like 26 million likes or something. Yeah, insane.
Genius.
Yeah. But, but the likes have become redundant now. And we're more looking at metrics like comments, shares, and saves. So they're kind of what we're looking at. And if your content isn't getting that, you need to go back and relook at your strategy, because you're not offering value and you don't really know your ideal follower as well as you should do. And that's a harsh truth for a lot of people. I have seen it happen so many times where like, we want to put out this kind of content, but is it actually in line with what your audience wants to see? And that doesn't always match up. And that's where we need to relook at strategies.
You mentioned there a bit about testing as well. Do you find it difficult getting brands to kind of maybe step outside their comfort zone to test different things?
It depends. With the feed, yes. With stories and with other types of content, not so much. And we'll probably do like a little bit of a staggered approach. So if you sense a client being quite nervous about something, you kind of ease them into it. I always find, so I'm like, well, what about if we tried this type of video or this type of story? And I definitely see the people are more adventurous with stories and things that are so like permanent. But I'm like, your feed post, you can archive it, you can take it down. You just never know if it's something that you feel, we spoke about aesthetic. If it doesn't fit, we can remove it in a few days, but let's just try it. So yeah, people can be quite nervous depending on the platform, depending on where. And I think Instagram, people are so protective over.
Yeah. And have you seen a drop in stories and IGTV since Reels came out?
A little bit, yeah. I definitely have. And I think for me, it comes down to consistency, which I think some people are so like blue in the face from hearing. They're like, oh, but I am consistent. And I'm like, you know what though, you might not be. It in terms of like what a very active week for you could look like, could be you being on stories every day, being on the feed post every day, and then if you don't keep that consistency the week later, it does drop. And I've tested it like where I've gone away for a weekend, I've not looked at my Instagram, I've not put anything up, I'll come back the next week and my reach and my engagement has plummeted. And I've no one to blame but myself, like, but I'm like, it plummets, and then it does take a little bit of time to get it back up. It does, but it does take a bit of time.
Very good.
And you use hashtags, so I would love some advice for our listeners and for me on how to use hashtags properly.
Yes. So the biggest piece of advice I would say is to make sure that you're utilizing the full amount that you can. So there's a big thing, and like, there's loads of rumors of like how many hashtags we should be using. I've heard 11, I've heard 15. I've tested them all, and I don't necessarily think that the 11s and the 15s drive as much engagement. So I utilize the full 30, because why wouldn't you? It's just it's the maximum opportunity that you've got. So I definitely do that. I've tested whether it's worked best in the post or in the first comment. Honestly, doesn't make a difference. It's probably just your preference, and my preference is first comment. I just think it looks a bit cleaner. And what I would do is actually, a lot of people make mistakes of copying, pasting the same hashtags on every post, and that, I think that worked quite a few years ago. It doesn't really work today. So you do have to really align the hashtag with what's happening in the picture. If it's advice, make sure you're using advice, tips and tricks hashtags, a little bit of generic ones as well. But what I would say is actually if you're looking for the hashtags that are going to get you found, you need to be looking at the size of your hashtag. So I try and keep the majority of my hashtags under the 300,000 associated posts with it, because if I'm using something that's a massive hashtag, it's got 15 million associated tags, what are the chances my post is going to come up? Like I'm going to be found straight away. So you kind of have to think about it like, okay, what's going to give me the best opportunity? So the benchmark tends to be using about 25 of your hashtags that are under that 300,000 mark. And then I would associate that then, or couple that with a couple of bigger ones then that would be between the 300 and 1 million. I wouldn't really go past the 1 million if you're a small brand and you're starting out. And I think that would probably give you the best opportunity. And yeah, I think just making sure that they're linked, looking at dead and banned hashtags as well is super important. So, we talk about banned hashtags that are just, they're not going to help you. They're not going to drive anything for your account. And every month I would spend a little bit of time and look at, the latest banned hashtags. And it's really simple. Just, there's no secret website. Just if you even Google it, like once a month, spend a little bit of time. If you Google that and be like, okay, banned hashtags November 2020, you'll get the full list. Like there's really random stuff in there as well. Like Miley Cyrus is a banned hashtag, which who knew?
Way.
Who knew? Yeah, she's a banned hashtag. And there's a couple of other beauty ones as well. So you'd be surprised what comes up. And also looking at dead hashtags as well. So if you're using something, say for example, just a random hashtag, say like hashtag digital marketing, and we're using that because it's aligned with your business, it's what you want to be associated with, and you might use that on a lot of your posts. But actually, if you go to Instagram and you search that hashtag, first of all, it probably has over the 300,000 mark. So let's look for more niche digital marketing hashtags, and then look at the most recent 9 posts associated with it, and look and see what timeline you're working with. So if the most recent post is about a month ago, we would say that's a dead hashtag, because what you would want to be coming up there is posts from an hour ago, 2 hours ago, like 5 minutes ago. And that means it's kind of alive, kicking, and recent posts are coming through. So if it's anything longer than that, we would say it's a bit of a dead hashtag. Now, a dead hashtag can be for a couple of weeks, and it's just Instagram's way of kind of keeping things fresh, making sure that, people aren't, like, I suppose, abusing hashtags because they're big and they want to be jumping on them. So that's why I set a set time aside every month, and I've got an Excel spreadsheet of like all the ones that I use, and I do just a little bit of a checklist of, are they dead? Are they still working? Have they kind of exceeded my numbers in terms of associated posts? And just do a little bit of a health check. But that's the part I think that we're not doing. I think it's that little bit of a health check to be like, are they actually working for me? And Instagram Insights are so great for giving you information of what traffic is coming to you from your hashtags.
And how much traffic do you get from your hashtags?
I would say on average probably about 20%.
That's very good.
Yeah, and that has grown significantly in the past year. It was about, for ages, being really honest, was probably about less than 5%. But then I was like, oh, why is that? And then when I did a bit of a deep dive, I was like, oh, so I'm using banned hashtags. I'm using dead hashtags. So you kind of revise the strategy. So I've learned that the hard way.
Okay,
do you do much on, I suppose, from 2 aspects, on the Instagram ads platform, either for yourself as an agency and for your clients?
Yeah, so we have done a little bit of advertising for Socially Ciara actually, and I adapt I suppose a very simple model to it. When we go into like Facebook advertising, as you both know, it's way more complex. But if we're looking at Instagram advertising, I would benchmark it based on what performs well organically. So if something is performing above my average engagement by maybe double the engagement, I'm like, okay, I've got something here. And what I would do then is boost that with a small budget. I find I've had really effective ads work on very little budget, like I mean £15, and I've got 2,500 saves off them.
Wow.
So, and I'm like, okay, this is going to work really, really well for me. And also it's making sure that the messaging is right. So if something's performed well organically, great, let's turn that into an ad, target new people who are in our space, who are in like the location that we want them to be. And maybe instead of just hitting boost, is there anything with the copy that we need to amend? So if one of your goals is to grow Instagram through your Instagram page through advertising, and you're offering advice and you're offering, you're more on like the coach side of things, change your opening title to be a call to action, to be like, follow me for more tips and advice. People are, they're going to be interested in the call to action, and they'll want to do it even without realizing that they're doing it. It's all about the psychology of it. And 100%. So I think even just changing that caption, changing any of your messaging, because the audience will be slightly different. It's going out to people who don't know you. So you might need to just refresh that before you hit boost. But I think boosting gets, I think sometimes a bit of a bad name, but I think boosting can have a good impact. And we do that for some of our clients as well, who are on the lower budget, and it works really well.
I think the call to action is a great tip, because a lot of people will just put up their post and then boost it. But I mean, even, putting a call to action at the, the end of your YouTube video and your Instagram post, and anything where people can take an action, whether it's to follow, to click out to a website, it makes a colossal difference when you actually just tell people, here's what I want you to do.
Because sometimes they're like, what's the point of this post? So important. And also like with your Instagram bio, like I think there's making sure that call to action is really clear and visible. Like, what are you promoting at the minute? And someone told me a really long time ago that you should have one clear call to action in your Instagram bio, and just be really particular that this is what you want people to do, and just be really direct with that. And because I used to have a link tree, which would be, you could have a couple of different, this is my website, this is my Twitter, this is my other social channels. So you could have a few different ones. But since I adopted a one call to action, one website, it has a much bigger impact, because you're clear on what you want them to do. So I would definitely advise people to go down that route. And utilizing, I think this is another great way to be found within your industry and within your niche, is on your Instagram bio. So you've got your username, and then you've got the space where you can put your name. So I would have had Ciara Lynch or Socially Ciara, and it's just typed there that I put in my bio. And people already know who I am because it's in my username. So what we've started to do is actually take that little piece of space and change it to keywords that are in our industry. So we work with a lot of hair brands. So, and in turn, I suppose a lot of hairstylists. So we would change that to be, Ciara Lynch, hairstylist or hair specialist or hair colorist, London. And that means that when people are finding for a hair specialist in that area, you automatically come up. And we've been found. So I changed mine, and you'll see it on my Instagram. I changed mine to social media manager. The amount of people who have followed us just based on, because they've been searching for a social media manager, and we come up. So that's a really good tip for people who want to find, to be found on Instagram.
Yeah, it's a brilliant tip. Yeah, I didn't know about that at all.
Yeah, no, it's really good. You'll definitely get followers on the back of that.
Amazing.
So maybe last thing, Ciara, maybe just a bit of a chat about Instagram shopping. We do an awful lot with the Facebook catalog feed, and using that then to deliver shopping ads across Facebook and Instagram. But obviously, the shoppable posts are becoming, I would say, fairly massive. What are your feelings on those, your tips around those, and kind of the insights you have on that?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. The amount of money I've spent on Instagram shopping is embarrassing. It's too easy. It's too easy. But you know what? I think it's come a long way in, it was introduced about 2.5 years ago now, and it's come a long way in terms of it's a bit easier to set up now. And I think at the very beginning, we really struggled to set up some shops for some people. It wasn't an easy process, whereas that's come quite a long way as well. But I think a lot of our clients it's great to have the shop, but don't just think because you have a shop, you don't have to do any additional marketing. So what we would say is, okay, let's look at the sales strategy. Let's look at, making sure that people still trust you as a business, that it's still you giving inspiration behind your product, that you are telling them about the benefits. And it's not just because you put up a shop about post, oh, the sales are going to come flooding in. It's that trust piece, and it's the education that goes into all of your other types of posts that will benefit you with the sales. So I think it's great to have it in the strategy, great that it's an option, but we can't kind of forget the fundamentals of selling and being an authentic partner.
Yeah, I mean, if you're literally just flooding your feed with buy my stuff, that's one way to lose your following very, very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. You know what though? You'd be surprised how many people do it. I don't know about you, but I see it on my feed and I'm like, okay, but what's great about this product? Why should I buy it?
I know, it really is about the why, not the just, oh, here's the product. It's why should I buy yours over somebody else's?
For sure. And like when I was working in-house for a brand a couple of years ago, and we were working with agencies, and I was getting so frustrated because I didn't feel like this agency were taking our brand seriously. And I was like, I feel like you don't know who we're talking to. And it was just a really frustrating time. So then when I started Socially Ciara and we started working with clients, I'd known the frustration that a brand could feel. And I was like, I don't want anybody to feel that way working with me. So what we did was we fleshed out this, we call it like a client transformation document essentially, and it's really detailed, but by the end, and we always like start off with this, and I'm like, okay, this will take us 2 to 3 weeks, but you will have the very best strategy because I'll know your customer as well as you will. And it goes through everything. It's like the lifestyle of your target audience, and what do they do for a living, where are they based, could they be based somewhere else, what kind of language do they like to be spoken, like it's so detailed, like. And I think it's really great for a business because sometimes they'll come back to me and be like, I never thought about it like this. But then we create a strategy that's completely aligned to that. So the content completely marries up. So Pamela, like you were saying, it's about the why, and we understand the pain points of your customer. We understand what makes them tick. We understand everything about them so that what we're producing is exactly for them. It's tailored to their needs. And I think it's about being that specific. And I think sometimes people think, oh, but could I be alienating other customers? And I'm like, you want to be talking to your customer. Yeah. You that's the be all and end all. And I think don't be afraid to be specific and niche and have that as part of your strategy.
Yeah, because some companies can be like, everyone's my customer, and you're like, no, they're not.
Doesn't work like that. Yeah, for sure.
But that's the brilliant thing about digital. If everyone is your customer, then you go out and you find all the niches and sub niches, and then you can use the different platforms to make sure you're getting the right message in front of the right person versus
in front of each
one message for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, completely agree.
Brilliant. Ciara, that was fantastic. If people listening would like to find you, I'm guessing I know where to send them. Instagram?
Yeah, so on Instagram, we're at Socially Ciara, and then we have our website as well, so sociallyciara.com.
Brilliant. Ciara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely chatting with you both.